Welcome to this piano lesson video. In this video, I would like to teach you how to play an actual song on the piano using the concepts that we've learned in the last two videos. We've learned the major scale using whole steps into half steps, and we've learned about major and minor chords using whole steps and half steps. Also, we learned how to rearrange the notes in a chord to make it sound different. We're going to use all of these concepts in this lesson to learn how to play a song. Our song today is Cornerstone by Hillsong. You can see right here we've got the key of C major. The tempo is 71 beats per minute, so it's not too fast, it's not too slow, it's sort of a medium tempo, and we are in the time signature of 4/4. There are two things to consider when you are figuring out how to play a song. The first thing, and maybe the most important thing, is how easy is it to make your chord transitions. So let's just say we have an A minor chord and a C chord that we have to transition between. We have a C chord here, and let's say we think that we have to play our A minor chord way up here. That's a big jump for our hand to make, and if we have to make it really fast in the song, we might do this by accident, and we might accidentally hit the wrong notes. We might make a mistake. We don't want to do that. The best way to have the best transition is to have an easy transition. The second thing to consider with your chord transitions specifically is how do they sound? Do they sound the way that you want them to? In general, the way that I teach my students is that the easier a chord transition is, the better it will sound. Let's take a look at that C and A minor chord again. Let's think about another way that we can play that A minor chord without moving it way up here like this and jumping our hands between them like that. Let's think about what are the notes in these chords. C major, C, E, and G. A minor, A, C, and E. C and E, C and E. We have the same two notes in both of those chords. So why should we not just leave these two fingers here to play those two notes in our A minor chord? We could do maybe something like this and play an inversion where we just play the A on top, but we keep C and E right here. We could also do it another way where we go from C and we just include our left hand here to play the A below C. And that is also playing an A minor chord with all the same notes of the A minor chord, but also it's a little bit less movement than this, where you kind of have to shift your fingers around and move them. In this one, you don't have to move your fingers at all. So those are two chord transitions. Both of them sound really good. One of them is a little bit easier to play. So I will always go for what's the easier transition to make. Your chord transitions should sound better if they're easier to play because you want to keep all of the notes close together. And that's a lot more smooth of a transition than that. It's a little bit more jarring and the notes are a little bit more disconnected because of how far apart they are on the piano keyboard. We've got a C chord, A minor, F, and G. So let's look at the transitions between these chords. We've got a C chord right there. Why should we not just play it just like that? The A minor chord. I really liked how easy it was to just use my left hand to play the root note and take my pinky off the G right there. Then we have an F chord. We've got two notes of the F chord already, A and C, so I could just do that, or I've also got a root note down here that I can include under my third finger. Or I could just leave my pinky off like that. So I can go C, A minor, F, like that with just those three notes right there. F, A, and C. Or if I wanted to, I can include that F right there. And I will see how those sound. C, A minor, F without the F on top. And now here it is with C, A minor, and F on top. I kind of like both. Both are fine. I think I'll go ahead and leave in the F note on top. Those chord transitions are really easy because my hand isn't moving at all, and all of the notes are right next to each other, so they sound really good too. The next chord is the G chord. We've got all of the notes of the G chord underneath our fingers already. Well, almost all. We've got some Gs, We've also got D right here. The only note that we're missing is B. It's right here in the middle. So I could either move my thumb down from my right hand or my thumb up from my left hand. I'll move it up from my left hand. In this G chord, it might be really nice to include that G as well. So our G chord will play something like this. G, B, D, G. So our intro goes something like this. And then starts the verse right there. Hopefully you understand those two ideas and how I use them. Easy transitions. I just picked which finger am I going to put down and which ones do I need to put down for the chord that I'm going to play. And also I made some decisions about which notes I included, which notes I left out based on how it sounded. Now let's look at the verse. Again, we've got C, F, G, and A minor, but we've got a couple of modified chords here. A minor / G and C sus. We can assume that we can play all of the chords in the song in exactly the same way every single time. So every single time you play a C chord, you play it the same way. And every single time you play an F chord, you play it in the same way. Sometimes we have chords that modify. Here we have an A minor modified with a G note. On the left, we can see A minor. That's the name of the chord. G is just one of the notes that's in the chord, and it's the note that we have to play the lowest on the keyboard. So that's interesting. We have to think about that as we're thinking about how easy is that going to be and how is it going to sound. We've got A minor. We could just play the G on top, and that sounds really nice. But we're supposed to play G as the lowest note, and the lowest G that we have access to is right here underneath our second finger. I think it sounds a little bit better with the G on top, but it doesn't sound terrible. We have to balance how easy is it and how does it sound. Either we do it like that with our A minor chord here, or we shift our fingers around like this, so where we move the A, so the A and G aren't right next to each other, clashing a little bit. We move them apart, and they are more separated. And that might sound a little bit better. Actually, I think that does sound a little bit better. It sounds a little bit better, but it's a little bit harder to play. And I'm just going to go for the way that it's easier to play because that's the best way to go for me. Let's look at the other modified chord in this verse, and it's C sus. Sus means that you suspend a note, the note stops being a part of the chord for a little bit. You know, when you're suspended from school or you're suspended from a job or something like that, you have to go away for a while, but you're going to come back. So let's look at how to play a C sus. You always have to have your root note, so you're never going to suspend your root note. You're also never going to suspend the fifth note. The only note that is ever suspended in a chord is the third note, the middle note. In this case, for a C chord, it's the note E. So we're going to suspend the E note. We're going to replace it with the note right next to it, D. This is called sus2 because we're replacing the third note with the second note. We could also replace it with the fourth note. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's F in this case, so we could have a sus4. The safest bet is always to go with a sus2 chord. If you're playing an F chord and it says to play it sus2, that means we're going to place A, we're going to suspend it, and we're going to replace it with G, sus2. In this case, it's the C sus2. That sounds great. That's how we play our C sus2 chord. Let's look at one more modified chord down here in the chorus, C over E. Just like A minor over G, C over E is a slash chord. C is the name of the chord. E is one of the notes that is in that chord, and it's also got to be the lowest note. So the slash chord still works the same way. Let's look at how to do that. In our right hand, we've got our C major chord in the root position. Our left hand, we've got an E down here underneath our fourth finger. So that's our C over E. And this entire time, none of our fingers have moved. except for our thumb moving to play a G chord. None of them have to move. It's really easy. And all of those chord transitions sound really good because of how close together the notes are.